Hi, everybody. This is Ibarionex from the Candid Frame. A few days ago, I was talking with a friend of mine who is not really a photographer. He's been taking pictures largely with his cell phone. But he started talking to me about his experience taking photographs because even though he's new to photography, he's really excited about it. And he talked about when he's making pictures, how it makes him feel incredibly present. That unlike most of the hours of his day, he's not distracted by what happened yesterday or what's going to happen tomorrow or even a couple of hours from now. That when he's out there with his smartphone making photographs, he is so in the moment that it surprised him and it made him realize how little time he is actively present in the moments of his life. And even though he isn't a photographer who's been shooting very long, he really nailed what photography is, at least for me, this ability to be present. Because I think a lot of what gets lost in photography is that we get preoccupied with the technical side. We're always trying to get that perfect shot, so we're thinking about shutter speed, lens choice, and all of these things that inevitably take us out of the moment. And I think that when you're really present and you're more about your seeing, then things open up to you for photographs that most other people would completely overlook. I chose three very different images to sort of illustrate different points about being present and why it's so important to stay in the moment. Okay, here we have a shot by Debby Kwong. We don't have any XF data on this in this image. Now, this image is remarkable on several accounts. First, and obviously, it's the light and the color. It's just beautiful. Fluorescent and artificial light sources are often problematic for us as photographers, but she uses it to great effect here. And those saturated colors of the security gates really make this shot pop. I love the contrast between sort of the purple and violet on the left and sort of the bluish green on the right. Love the graphic lines that pervade this entire shot that really sort of guide the viewer's eyes throughout the frame. But the reason I picked this shot with the idea of being present in the moment is I think about how many times I've gone to a restaurant or gone to a party at some place and I'm going out to my car. And how many times I've passed a scene just like this. All the shops have been closed down. There isn't a lot of people out on the streets. There's not the wealth of activity that usually is in the daytime. And I'm just trying to get to my vehicle. And I realize that during those moments, I'm not thinking about seeing. I'm just thinking about what's ahead of me, getting to my car, or maybe what happened to me at the event that I was before. I'm not actively seeing. And I know that I've walked through scenes just like this. And they probably have been missed opportunities for me photographically because I didn't think about making photographs. And sometimes the best photographs that I've made have not been when I went out with the intent that day of going out to make photographs. It wasn't like, okay, this is Saturday, I'm going to go out to downtown Los Angeles and spend 3 hours shooting. Sometimes some of my favorite photographs have been the result of me just having my camera with me going about, the tasks of my life, and all of a sudden something is revealed to me. And then I have my camera at the ready in order to make the shot. And I use all those skills that I've developed in terms of my awareness of light and shape and gesture and all of those things. And I take advantage of that moment and make the shot. So when I see this shot by Debby, I'm not saying that this is exactly what happened to her. It may have well been that she went out with the intent of making photographs, and this was just a scene that presented itself to her. But it reminded me of the so many times when I'm just not thinking, or I am thinking way too much. That's probably a better description, where I'm so preoccupied with the voices inside of my head that I'm not actively seeing. I'm not taking this opportunity to just be present in the moment and not be so preoccupied with the voices that are in my head. And I think that as photographers, we're given a gift when we learn to use the camera to make pictures, not just to take pictures, but to make pictures, because it's an opportunity to really observe the world in a way that most people are completely oblivious to. And obviously, Debby here has a really good sense of how to use her camera, especially with respect to composition. The two figures in the frame, the one here on the foreground with his phone here and this other one in the back, help to really balance out the frame, even though the figures are very small within the frame. And just as I mentioned, the light, the color, the lines, the shapes result in a great composition. I commend her for seeing this moment, because this is the scene that most people would not even think about because they're so preoccupied with other things. Okay, here we have a shot by Jimmy Dovholt. This was created with a Fujifilm X Pro 1, 1/500th of a second, 5.6, ISO 1600. Now, this is a photograph of a demonstration. And anytime there's a demonstration, you'll see a lot of photographers out there because they know it's just a ripe moment, opportunity for photographs, because there's so much drama that's happening. But that's also the reason why it's one of the most difficult things to shoot effectively. Because there's so much activity, sometimes you just don't know where to look. And you're just sort of bouncing around, and you're just like pointing your camera at anything and everything in the hopes of getting a shot. There have been some demonstrations here recently in Los Angeles, and I see a lot of photographs of people out in demonstrations, but the bulk of the photographs are people simply standing there or holding signs. And the photograph becomes more about the people who are holding the signs up, more so than anything else. There isn't a moment there. There isn't a genuine expression of emotion. There isn't anything dynamic happening within the frame. That's not the case here. This woman with her outstretched fist, the figures on the left and the right hand edges of the frame, the smoke that's being created by fireworks or maybe a bonfire of some sort. I'm not sure exactly what. But this moment where this woman has her fist raised in the air and she just has this look of defiance on her is a wonderful, wonderful moment. And I think that moments like this are incredibly fleeting. They happen, but if you're preoccupied with other things, you're not going to recognize it for what it is. And because things are so fluid and because things are so ever-changing, you have to be incredibly quick in order to be able to capture an image like this and to do it effectively. Because even though this woman might be up there and have her hand up there and yelling for a couple of seconds, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the right position to make the photograph, or that you have the right camera settings, or that you have the right focal length. Or more importantly, that you're in the right position so that you're not only the subject, but the foreground and the background elements are all in place in order to make a really good composition. And because you're in this press of humanity around you, you're very restricted in terms of your movement. So all of that being said, what I'm saying is that all of those things are distractions. All of those things are things that can potentially lead you to miss the opportunity when it presents itself. And part of the importance of being present is making sure that all of that stuff, especially the technical side with the camera, has been eliminated. Sticking to a single focal length, making sure all your camera settings are taken care of. Being aware of your space around you, how things are moving, getting a sense of, what would be in my background if a scene presented itself to me? What's the light like? Figuring all those things out before the moment presents itself. Because when the moment presents itself, all you have time for is to raise your camera to your eye and press the shutter release button. And if you're lucky, the opportunity to be able to shift your position so that you can get a better angle or a better perspective on your subject. If you're not that present, you're not going to be able to make those choices. You may see a moment like this, and you may raise the camera to your eye and press the shutter release button, but that doesn't mean that you actually are seeing what's presented in front of your camera. You're seeing someone express themselves pretty dramatically, and you raise your camera, you press that shutter release button, and what you're basically doing is you're crossing your fingers and you hope you got something good, right? But what I'm talking about is being present so that you are actively seeing and consciously making every choice necessary in order to make that shot. And it takes some work to do this. It doesn't come easy because, we all have those voices in our heads that serve as distractions. I don't know what was going on for Jimmy here when he made this shot, but it is a great, great moment. If I have any quibble about it, I think it's the negative space here on the left-hand side. I think it could deal with a little bit of cropping on the left-hand side. just because I think it's a little bit too much negative space here. But other than that, it's a small quibble. And, when it comes to situations like this, you're not going to be perfect in terms of composition all the time. But the thing is, you want to try and eliminate all the possibilities that could ruin a shot well before the moment presents itself. So when it does, you're ready and you can, do your best to pull off the shot. All right, here we have a shot by City Street Photos. This was created with a 5D Mark III, 1/500th of a second, 5.6, ISO 100. Now, this shot reminds me of times when, because I've been physically uncomfortable, either too cold or too hot, that I've not even wanted to consider making a photograph because I'm physically uncomfortable. In this case, I would have been incredibly cold. All I'm thinking about is getting into the car, getting into the building. I'm not thinking about pulling out my camera and trying to make any kind of photograph. And I think that issue of physical discomfort is one of the things that can take you out of the moment. Whether it's heat, whether it's cold, whether it's feet hurting, whether it's your stomach that's growling from hunger, all of those things pull you out of the moment. And it makes it incredibly difficult to be present enough to take advantage of moments as they reveal themselves. This looks like it was taken from a building. Maybe it was a parking lot or parking structure that gave him a view of this. But I can imagine that even though this provides a wonderful perspective for a shot, that many people probably saw this and it was just part of their mundane world. It's just another day where it's snowing, where it's cold, where there's, all these vehicles that are covered in snow, there are tracks in the snow. And so what? This is my everyday. But to a photographer, and to a photographer who has an eye, they see this for what it is, the potential for a wonderful photograph, because you have that tonality of light to dark. You have those shapes, you have those lines, you have the gesture and the fluidity that's created by those lines in the snow. And then you have that human figure in the upper right-hand corner that helps provide scale to the scene and context for the scene. Physical discomfort is, regardless of what causes it, is one of the things that really pulls me out of seeing. And I have to actively resist that in order to be able to get back to center, to be able to get back to, making photographs. Sometimes the best thing I need to do is just stop trying to make photographs, or stop, thinking about my discomfort and just sit down or just breathe and just take a moment. I want to encourage you to think about that as you go through the course of your normal day. Think about how many times you're not even looking at the world that's in front of you. How so much of your activity is in your head, and how that may result in you losing out on some wonderful photographic opportunity. Practicing being present is an invaluable skill. And it is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the most important skills any photographer can develop. Because when you're practicing that sort of mindset, you're able to take advantage of opportunities that most photographers would never even consider. Okay, I hope you found that helpful. If you're going to be in LA next weekend, which is February 17th, Saturday, February 17th, I and several other photographers are going to be speaking at the Los Angeles Center of Photography for what's called Street Week LA. This is the fourth year in which we have a panel of different photographers speak on their own unique approaches to street photography. I recorded some of the sessions in previous years, and I've shared them on the Candid Frame podcast. But if you're in LA and you can make it, it's going to be a full day, and it is going to be absolutely amazing. I've always been very inspired by what I've heard and what I've seen during those days. So check it out. You can go to lacphoto.org to find out more. And if you're finding the Candid Frame for the first time and you want to find out more about what we do, well, the Candid Frame is a podcast which features conversations with photographers about their work, about their careers. And we have over 400 interviews in our archive. Our most recent interview was with David J. Murphy. He is a photographer who's worked with the military in 2 branches of the military. And it's an amazing, amazing story. And you should definitely check it out. I think it's very inspiring to see one of our members of the military practicing photography and really making a difference. And if you want to submit images to the Candid Frame Flickr pool, all you have to do is go to Flickr, do a search on the Candid Frame on your computer, and just ask to be added, and I'll be glad to do so. Avoid trying to do it on your phone or tablet because you're not going to be able to do it. You'll get some sort of warning about that this is a private group and you can't be added. You'll have to go through your computer, and then once you do so, I'll be glad to add you. So thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next time.